Hey there, I'm Louie, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make an ogre from my new Goblinoid pattern bundle. He also kind of looks like a cave troll from Lord of the Rings, which was kind of the original inspiration. So in the full pattern bundle, you can get all of the patterns here you can see in the background, and you can find that at clubcrochet.com/goblinoid. And if you haven't got it yet, and you use the code GERBLIN, GERBLIN at checkout, you'll get, I think, a certain percentage off, so that if you just purchase this pattern, you'll get the price of this pattern off of the full bundle. So yeah, if you haven't got that bundle yet, go check it out there. But in this video, we're going to be making this crocheted ogre. So let's get these guys out of the way. For this pattern, you're going to need the following materials. I'm using all worsted weight yarn in blue, light blue, white, and brown. That's not blue and light blue, but just light blue. Also, I'm using safety bead eyes for the eyes. You can also use bullion knots in replace for that if you don't have safety bead eyes. I think I'm using an 8mm eye, maybe 10mm. I'm not totally sure. And because I'm using worsted weight yarn, I'm using a size G crochet hook. This guy, by the way, he can stand up on his own, but he sometimes falls over, so he's got to stick up his butt so that he can stand himself up a little bit better. Yeah, so let's get hooking. We're going to start by crocheting the lip. Okay, so for the lip, we're going to start with our light blue yarn here, and I'm going to start with a slip knot. And the lip is relatively, actually, it's really simple. All you have to do is chain 15. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And you can kind of see those chains there. See how I haven't made them too loose or too tight. I'm kind of keeping them somewhere in between. And you want to have just a little bit extra yarn so you have something to sew it onto the face with. And we can cut the yarn. There you go. And just pull it all the way through. And we're going to sew this onto the face once we get going on the body. Next up are the teeth, and the teeth are also pretty simple. We're going to start with a slip knot. You want a somewhat long end here. I'm going to make that. And it depends how many teeth you want. You can make like 3 or even just 1, or you could have none. But I like having at least 2 teeth. So for the teeth, we're going to make a slip knot like this. And we're going to chain 2. 1 and 2. And with that second chain, we're going to pull it just a little bit tighter. And we're going to go, I'm going to get closer here. We're going to go, and we want to get your crochet hook into the back loop of the first chain that you made. So there's our first chain. We want to take our crochet hook and get into that first loop there. You might want to use your nail to help you pry that loop open. And make a single crochet. Okay. Now we want to cut the yarn. You don't need too much of a long end. You're just going to tie it together with these 2 ends. And we're just going to chain 1 and just pull it all the way through. Okay? Pull it tight. That's going to be how to make the teeth. I'm going to make 2 of these, maybe 3, and we're going to sew them on after we sew the lip onto the face. Alright, so next up we're going to be making the arms, and I have a special way to make these arms. First off, we're going to be using a magic loop here. You can also use the chain 2 method if you don't know how to do the magic loop, and if you want to learn how to do the magic loop, there should be a link right here or in the description below to take you to a video for how to make the magic loop. So we're going to do that. We wrap it around our finger, get our crochet hook in there, and pull through. And again, you can use the chain 2 method if you feel more comfortable with it. Okay, so for the arms, for round 1, we're going to work 6 single crochets into the second chain from the hook or into the magic loop. We're obviously doing the magic loop method, so we're going to make it into the magic loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we're going to tie it a little bit tighter. Okay. There you go. And that's going to be the end of round 1. For round 2, if you're reading it along with me, you'll see that there's these little brackets like that. Whatever's in those brackets are into the same stitch. So as we go into round 2, you're basically doing 2 stitches into each stitch from round 1. Just so you know, you're going to be working more than one stitch into each stitch, I guess. So for the first stitch, this is also worked in the round, meaning that we're not going to turn for the entire piece. So we're going to take our crochet hook, get it into that first stitch like that. Okay. Now into that stitch, we want to make a bobble stitch and a single crochet. We actually want to make a mini bobble. So let me show you how to do that actually. We want to take that crochet hook out of there actually. So for a mini bobble, you're going to yarn over with the yarn, enter the stitch, yarn over again, and pull a loop through the stitch. Okay? Then you're going to yarn over a third time, and pull through 2 loops on the hook. You're basically kind of making what looks like a double crochet. You want to repeat this process 3 times total for a mini bobble. Okay? So let's do it again. We're going to yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull a loop through. Whoop. And then yarn over and pull through 2 loops on the hook. Okay? And that's going to be our second repeat. We want one more. Yarn over, into the stitch, pull a loop through, yarn over again, and pull through 2. So this is for a mini bobble, okay, because it's going to be a little bit smaller than a classic bobble stitch. To finish it up, we want to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on the hook. There should be 4 loops before you yarn over. Okay, so that's going to be a mini bobble. So that's our first stitch that we make. Now we want a single crochet into the same stitch that we made that mini bobble. So I'm going to loosen up my stitch a little bit. Okay, so it gives my crochet hook a little bit more leeway. Going to go back into the stitch and do a single crochet. Once we have both these loops out, I'm going to pull it tighter to pull that second loop that we loosened up a little bit tighter. And you're making both of those into the same stitch. Okay? So now we want to repeat that exact process 2 more times. So let's do it again. We're going to do another mini bobble into the next stitch. So we finished up our first stitch. We did our 2 stitches in there. Now we're going to do a mini bobble into the next stitch. Okay, so we do our first double crochet repeat. That's what that system's called. It's called a double crochet repeat. There's our second one. Here's our third one. All right. Now we're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops to finish up that mini bobble. And we'll single crochet into the same stitch again for our second stitch. Okay. Now we want to do that one more time. Let's do it again. Okay. Here's our mini bobble. We're working into the next stitch now. 1, 2, 3 repeats of that double crochet thing. Now we yarn over and pull through all the loops and do another single crochet into the same stitch that we made that mini bobble. Okay. Okay, so that's going to be the start of our round. You can see how we're making our 3 fingers there. Into the next stitch, we want to do an increase, so we just want to do 2 single crochets. It's kind of hard to tell which one's the next one, but if you really look, you can see both of those are going into that hole right there. So that stitch right here is the next one. And we want to make an increase into that stitch. 1 and 2. Okay? Now we want to do one more of these fingers. Okay? So we want to do another repeat of the bobble, mini bobble, and a single crochet. So let's do our mini bobble, the next stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over and pull through all those, and then another single crochet into that same mini bobble stitch. There we go. Okay, and to finish up round 2 here, we want to do one more increase into the last stitch right here. All right, that's going to finish up round 2. You can see the end of the hand there. All right, for round 3, we're going to single crochet 8 and then we're going to decrease 2. So first let's single crochet 8. It's kind of hard to see which ones are the stitches. If you look from the top, you can kind of see where those V stitches are that you want to work into. We're going to single crochet 8. So let's go ahead and get to that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay? Now we want to do 2 invisible decreases. For an invisible decrease, we want to go into the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So here's our next 2. We want to just go into that front loop right there of the next 2. So there's our first front loop, get our crochet hook around, get into our next front loop. You might need your nail again for that. And we're going to do a single crochet into both those front loops. Okay? So now we just do a single crochet, we yarn over and pull through both those front loops and just finish up that single crochet. We want to do that twice. So there's our first one. Here's our next one. Okay, we want to get front loop, go around, front loop, yarn over and pull through both of those front loops, yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, that's going to be the end of round 3. I'm just trying to get this bobble stitch out. It looked like it was kind of getting caved in there. But you can see how our hand is starting to develop. Yeah, see? All right, so for round 4, we're just going to be doing a single crochet into each stitch around. So that's pretty easy. There's going to be 10 stitches now. So just do 10 single crochets. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can see I'm keeping it pretty taut for these stitches. 10. Okay. All right, so that's going to be the end of round 4 there. For round 5, we're going to be doing 8 single crochets again. So first do 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's our 8th. And now we want to do an increase into the next 2 stitches, but we only want to work into those front loops, meaning the loops closest to us, okay? So we're going to take a crochet hook and get it into that front loop only. And we want to do an increase into that loop. Okay, so increase means 2 single crochets into that same stitch. Okay, see that? Let's do it again. We're going to do it into the front loop again for this next one. Okay, so we get into that front loop. We do our first single crochet, go into the front loop again. There's our second one. All right, and that's going to start to create kind of a muscle to it. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 5. You should now have 12 stitches around instead of 10. You went up from 10 to 12. For round 6, we're going to do 2 single crochets. Okay, so let's start right here. You can go 1 and 2. And now we want to do 2 invisible decreases again. So remember that invisible decrease, we're going into those front loops of the next 2 stitches. Wow, right there. And do another invisible decrease. So that was our first one. Let's do one more. Front loop, front loop. Okay. And now we want to finish up round 6 by doing 6 single crochets. Okay, so make sure to skip this one because that's our second front loop right there. So there's our next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And by the way, this is just an extra thing that I probably should have mentioned in the beginning, but this little tail end, don't cut it. We're going to need it for sewing it onto the body. All right, so for round 7, we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and we're going to do 2 invisible decreases. Okay, we're doing those front loops again. Okay, those are 2 front loops. Let's do it again right here. Front loop, front loop. Okay, so those are 2 invisible decreases. And now we want to do 2 single crochets. That's 1 and 2. And then finish up these arms by doing a slip stitch right here in the next stitch. Okay? All right. And that's all you need to do for these arms. You can see how we got little arms now. Now we can just cut the yarn. We want to leave a long enough end so we can sew it onto the body. It's probably good like that length. And we're just going to pull it all the way through. And we're going to use these 2 ends to sew it onto the body. All right, and let's put this to the side. You're going to want to make 2 of these and 2 feet. But next up, let's learn how to make the feet. They're actually very similar to the hands. All right, so for the legs or the feet, we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to do our magic loop again. In fact, the beginning is exactly the same. You can use the chain 2 if you'd like. And we're going to start by single crocheting 6 into the magic loop or into the second chain from the hook for round 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm just going to pull that a little tighter. Okay. Oops. All right. Now for round 2, we're going to start the exact same way with those mini bobble stitches. So we're going to start by going into that first stitch right here, and we're going to do a mini bobble stitch into that. So we're going to yarn over, go into that first stitch, and I'm working around this tail just for like the first stitch. And we're just going to do a mini bobble into that first one. So that's 1. Remember, that's 3 repeats of a double crochet repeat without finishing up the double crochet. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and you'll have 4 loops on the hook. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops to finish up the mini bobble. And we're going to do another single crochet into that same stitch. You can see it's kind of hard to get that in there, so we're going to pull that loop out, go into the stitch. Get that tail out of the way there. We're just going to pull everything tighter. There we go. All right, so there's our mini bobble. Now we're going to do another one into the same stitch, into the next stitch, because remember we're doing the exact same thing. So we want to repeat this, a mini bobble and a single crochet into the same stitch 3 times in a row. So that's 1 time. Let's go into this next stitch and do our mini bobble. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops, and then do another single crochet into that same stitch. Okay, and let's do it again right here. One more time. We're doing a mini bobble. 1, 2, and 3, and then pull through all those loops and do another single crochet into that same stitch with that mini bobble. Okay, but the difference for the feet is that you don't need a thumb obviously, because it's a foot. So we're just going to do increases into the next 3 stitches. So we want to do 3 more increases. So we're going to skip, go to the next stitch and do an increase. So 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. So that's our first increase. Then our next increase right here, 2, 2. Okay, and 1 more increase. And that's going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches. So you should have 12 stitches by the end of this round. It's pretty much the same as the hand, but without the thumb. All right. But I mean, we will be changing it up a little bit as we go on. So for round 3, it's actually still the same as the arms. We're going to do 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we're going to do 2 invisible decreases. And remember, those invisible decreases are going into the front loops of the next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. Okay, so 2 front loops, and then we'll do our single crochet. And you want to do 2 of those invisible decreases. So there's our first one, here's our second. And the invisible decreases here are meant to pull the round up to make it kind of a heel. Okay, there you go. You kind of see how our foot's coming along. See? All right. So for round 4, we're just going to do a single crochet into each stitch. Okay, so that's just going to be 10 single crochets. I think 10, right? Yes, 10 single crochets. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and here's our last one right here. Oh wait, never mind. Sorry. I think this next stitch is our last one. I miscounted. All right. Okay. There we go. That's going to be the end of round 4. For round 5, we're still sticking to the arm. We want to do 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we want to be working into the front loops only again, so just those front loops, and we want to do an increase into the next 2 front loop stitches. So 2 increases in a row, working only in those front loops. So this is the first one. There's our increase. And then our next one right here, our second increase. And that's going to bring you back up to 12 stitches around. All right. There we go. You can see how it's kind of a little foot going on there. There's our heel. Yeah, you see how it's kind of working. All right. So for our next round, round 7, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then 2 invisible decreases. So going into those front loops in the next 2 stitches. So our first invisible decrease. Here's our second one. Okay. And then we want to do 2 more single crochets. 1 and 2. And then we're going to finish these legs up by doing a slip stitch into the next stitch right here. Pull that through. We're going to cut the yarn. You want enough to sew it onto the body, of course, and just pull it all the way through. All right, and that's going to be how you make the legs. You can see we stopped a little early, just like how we did at the end of our arm. But we have one less round in the leg, and you can kind of see how it's a little foot. All right, so you want to make 2 of both the arms and the feet. The feet, I like to, when we sew it onto the body, I actually finish up the entire piece and then sew it on when the body's actually closed shut. You can also sew it onto the body so that he's kind of more sitting. So if you look at our hobgoblin here, which we'll talk about this again when we get to it. So normally for the cave troll, and these are totally different patterns, but they actually have very similar feet and arms. And for the cave troll, I put the arms on the bottom of him, so he's more like standing up like that, or the ogre, sorry. And for the hobgoblin here, I put them on the front of the body, so he's more sitting down on his butt. Yeah. Okay, so you want to make 2 arms and 2 legs. And then once you have that, I believe it's time to make the body. And for the body, we're going to be doing the magic loop method again. You can also do the chain 2 method if you feel more comfortable with that. But we're going to be doing the magic loop method. And for round 1, we're going to be single crocheting 6 times into the second chain from the hook or into the magic loop. Obviously, we're doing it into the magic loop. And I think the most difficult part of this pattern has already been passed with the feet and the hands. I think those are way more difficult than the body. Body is a little self-explanatory. And we're just going to tighten this magic loop. So you should have 6 single crochets in the round. This is going to be worked in the round again, meaning that we're not going to have to turn around for the entire piece. For round 2, we're going to be working into the first stitch that we made right here, and we're going to be doing an increase into each stitch around, meaning 2 single crochets into each stitch around. This is going to bring you up from 6 stitches to 12 stitches around. So we're just going to be doing an increase all the way around to bring up from 6 to 12. Just keep going. And this is why this pattern, the making the body for this guy is relatively easy. I think it can be a little complicated to sew on the face, and also the what's it called? The club at the end can be a little tough. For round 3, we're going to be working a single crochet into the first stitch right here, and then an increase into the next stitch. And you're going to repeat that process, a single crochet and then an increase 6 times total. So repeat it 6 times. So let's do our second repeat here. There we go. And this is going to bring you up from 12 stitches to 18 stitches. At the end of round 3, you should be at 18 stitches around. And I think I mentioned this before, but this ogre actually started as a cave troll. But after I made another troll, I realized that calling this a cave troll and then the other thing a regular troll might have been confusing for people that aren't really into Lord of the Rings. So I decided to call these guys ogres instead, which makes sense. I think they look like ogres. Alright, so that's going to be the end of round 3. Should have 18 stitches around now. For round 4, we're increasing yet again. We're going to do 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and then an increase into the next. And you're going to repeat that, 2 single crochets and then an increase 6 times total. This will bring you up from 18 stitches to 24 stitches around. Yeah, but I made one of these originally like a year ago, and I was so happy with the results. I just kept going like, I've got a cave troll. And but I didn't know what to do with them yet. I wasn't ready to release the pattern for them because I knew it was a very special pattern to me. So I wanted to make sure I did it the right way. So this was before actually Club Crochet was created. I had the idea for these patterns, and I've kind of been wanting to come out with them ever since. All right, so that's going to be the end of round 4. For round 5, we are increasing yet again, but this time we're increasing a little more subtly. So we're going to do 7 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we're going to do our increase. So 8 and a 9. And we're going to repeat that process, 7 single crochets and then an increase 3 times total. Instead of 6 times, we're only doing it 3 times. And that's going to bring you up from 24 stitches to 27 stitches. And a great way to do this without actually having to count the stitches is I just look at where the increases are from the last round, and every other increase I'm putting an increase into. So here's our second increase right here. So here, I'll show you with this last one. As I go through, I know I have to do 7 single crochets, which means I have to pass the first increase. So here's our first increase. You can see there's 2 stitches right there. I'm going to pass that one, keep going, and when I see the next increase, I'm going to put an increase into the second stitch there. So right here. And that's going to bring you up from 24 to 27 stitches. That'll be the end of round 5. For round 6, we are single crocheting 8 and then increasing. So we're taking it up just another one. So single crochet 8 times. Okay. 7, and here's our 8th. And then we're going to do an increase into the next. So that'll be 9 and 10. And then we're going to repeat that 3 times total. And that's going to bring you up from 27 stitches to 30 stitches. So we're going up yet again. And I believe 30 stitches is where we're going to stay at. We're only going to go down from here. 30 stitches is the biggest we're going to get for the head, or for the body in general. But yeah, as we continue, and I'm doing the same kind of thing. I'm looking for wherever the increases were from the last round. So here's our last increase right there, and I know to do an increase into that stitch. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 6. So now for rounds 7 through 10, that's 4 rounds total, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 4 rounds. We're going to just be doing single crochets into each stitch around. So for 4 rounds, we're just doing single crochets, and there should be 30 stitches per round. I'm going to go ahead and do these 4 rounds of single crochets, and I'll be back in just a sec. All right, and that's going to be the end of round 10 there. Now we can go ahead and sew on the face, start making the face. So the very first thing that I like to do is add the eyes, because it gives me a general idea of where to put the rest of the face. So for the eyes, the best way I find to do it is I like to find the first increase that you made in, I think it's in round 6. Look for the first increase you made. So if you go back down here, this is going to be round 6 right there. So right there, that's going to be the increase. So you can see it right there. Okay? And you go 1 stitch over to the right of that. See? So that stitch. You're going to put the first eye right there. We're going to do the same to the next increase. So now we just follow over, find the next increase right there, and do the same thing. Oops. So go 1 stitch over right here and place it in there right there. And that should be a good distance for the eyes. Okay? We'll just go ahead and lock those in. And there we go. Let's do the other one. There we go. We're going to put detail on these eyes, but I like to add the rest of the face before I put the detail, because I'm never really sure what I want to make the face to look like until I have the rest of the face put on. Okay, so there we go. We got our eyes on. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to sew on the mouth. So we're going to grab our mouth, and you can see that there's two ends here. This is the end that we cut and pulled through, and this is the tail end from where we began. The tail end is going to go on this side of the face, and this is going to go on the other side. So we're going to take our needle, we're going to thread the long end first, because we want to make sure we have the full scope of it, I suppose. And what I like to do is you want to go up, I suppose, just a few stitches above. The best way I find to do this is I like to look at my previous one right there to make sure. Yeah, looks good. So it looks like what I do is I go 2 rounds up from our increase right here. So from this eye's increase right there, I go 2 rounds up, 1, 2, and I go into the right one right there. Okay? And you want to pull that all the way through so that the knot is just pulled through the end. Okay? And then you want to come out through the next stitch right here. We're going to re-pull that knot through, so don't worry if you didn't pull it all the way through. In fact, I'm going to pull it back out for just a second. Now, the way I sew this on is you want to go down through each of the chains. So if I go down, this is the first chain right here. I mean, there's the little knot, but we want to go through this bottom of that chain and then into the stitch and back out through the next stitch over that we want to work with. Okay? Now, once you get that first one, now we can go ahead and pull that knot through. So you want to take the inside, get it so that knot is pulled through the inside right there, and then you can start pulling everything a little bit tighter. Okay. And you want to keep going down through those chains as we continue across. So there's where we went down on our first chain right there. There's our second chain, I believe. Oh, no, wait, this is our second chain. So this is the confusing part about sewing on the mouth, is that the chains, it looks like this one is the next chain, but really it's this one right here. Okay, so we want to go down through that chain, then down through the stitch and up through the next stitch over, and we'll just continue doing that all the way across. Here's our next chain, down and across. And you might have a few extra chains left over depending on how you sew this on, but don't worry about that. That's totally okay. I do it all the time. Okay, so you keep going across. And you'll kind of see after the end of this, I've kind of noticed that it looks kind of like a frog's mouth, so I might reuse this exact same technique in the future for making a frog. I thought that would be kind of a fun pattern. I want to get more into making animals anyhow, so a frog I think would be a fun one. All right, kind of getting confused here. Oh, there it is. There's our chain. Down, up. I love crocheting. I don't like sewing things on necessarily, but man, I really do love crocheting. Obviously. All right. Keep going. And the mouth always, to me, looks a little funny before you add the teeth and stuff. But here, you can see how he kind of looks like, see how he's kind of got a little bit of a smile going on here? Yeah. The real detail, the real like personality comes when we add the some details on the eyes and stuff like that. I always get so much more character to my, or personality to my pieces. All right, so this is going to be the last one right here, because you want it to be, you want the next, you want the last tail end to go right here. See, so if you look down through the eye, remember how if we went down to the eye and we went right a few stitches, we want to do the same thing but to the left. So right there is where we want our last tail end to go. But we want to go around our last chain right there. And see, we still have that knot left over. So we're going to take this knot and thread it on the needle. And we want to pull it through the next stitch right here. And we're just going to double knot these two ends. Make sure, try to pull it as much as you can so that this knot is kind of like poking through, if you can, like that, see? And we'll go ahead and just double knot these two ends. It's going to be how you sew on the lip. There we go. All right, we can cut these ends. We don't need them no more. And there you go. You can see we got our mouth sewn on. I need to tweak a little bit, but looks pretty good actually. All right, so next up, let's sew on our teeth. So, I only have one tooth for this guy. So we're just gonna add one tooth on. Let's go with the left side. The best thing to do with the teeth, by the way, a great little secret is, if either of these lips look a little funky, like either the corners or any parts in between look funky, just add a tooth over it. It's a great way to kind of hide any funky looking parts of it. So for adding the tooths, or the teeths, you want to thread each of these tail ends and sew them onto the lip through the body. So let's go through like right here on the body, or let's go right here. Okay, so I like doing them in the corners of the mouth, and you want to pull it enough so that the knot just pokes through. See, there's the knot. I'll do it at the other end here, and you want to make sure that both of these ends come through different stitches. So that was through that stitch. Now let's go through the stitch above that right there. And same thing, we're going to pull it through. So, oopsies, be careful about what I just did, which is to pull the entire tooth through. But I can fix that. I'm just going to grab the ends here, just pull it back out. Okay, there we go. Let's try this again. You want to pull it so that these knots are pulling through. Yeah, so be careful not to pull too tight, obviously, because it'll pull the whole tooth out like I just did. All right, now we can just double knot these guys on the inside. And we'll cut it close. There we go. All right, so now we got a tooth for our little character. Now the last thing that I like to do is add some detail like the nose and the eyes. So remember that little extra end that we had here. And you don't need to add this. You should add the nose, but like you don't really need to add the eyes if you don't want to. Here's how I like to do it. First, I come out through. See, if you look, we got to get really close for this. If you look at the stitch right directly next to the eyes, and you go right in between the stitch. Okay, so here's this little bar. You want to go right in between that bar, like that. See those two ends? Trying to get into those ends if you can. Okay, just get one half of the yarn through that, and we can thread the other side. This might be easier to do with a sharper needle if your yarn is a little bit thicker. And then we want to go across the eye and do the same thing to the other stitch on the other side of the eye. So it's in between this bar right there. Okay, it's like I'm doing eye surgery. All right, there we go. And that's going to give him kind of like a squinty, tired look. So if you do just the bottoms, that's how that's going to look. If you want to do it again, you can get kind of like an over-the-top look and give them a bit of an angry eye. The more you put here, the more detail you're going to get. So let's do, I usually like doing, especially for these ogres, I like doing one on the bottom and one on the top for one of the eyes, and then on the other eye just doing on the bottom. So let's just start with the bottom for this eye. And now let's move on to the nose. For the nose, I like going a few stitches over. Let's go like right here. And we can just keep doing this as we go. Let's go like this. We're gonna come out. And you wanna go a few stitches to the right and then down. So like right here. That's probably a good spot. And then you want to come out through the next stitch over. Okay, so you see how we're adding just like some nostrils. And then you want to come up and down through a few stitches over, like that. Okay? And now we're going to come out through the next part of the eye because we want to add another eyelid. Okay, but you can see how we got our nostrils starting. We're going to go back over these as we come back to the other eye. And we'll do the same thing on this eye. Let's do another bottom eyelid. There we go. We're going to come back out for that nose. If we can get that. There we go. There we go. See how we're getting kind of some detail going on here. You want to pull these the eyelid things a little bit tight, but just be careful not to pull them too tight. You can pull it so you can barely even see it, and that could be a little bit of a bummer. So see how I'm going back over the same spots for the nose? Because I want to add a little bit more of detail to it. Okay, let's go through the next part. And then lastly, I'm going to put one more eyelid on the top of this, I guess this is right eye. I'm pulling out these embroidered nose pieces just a little bit, just to get, so that they have a little bit more detail there. We're going to go over the top and then into the same end here. And we want it to be on the top of the eye this time. So I make sure it's over on the top of the eye. And I pull it tight. And there you go. We got his eyes going on. Looks pretty good. My stitches are a little loose around the eye, but I think that's going to be fine when we stuff them closed. All right, so let's go ahead and double knot these two ends, as you do. And that's going to be how we sew on the face. You can also add other details like rings. You could add warts and scars and stuff. And those are all available. If you're a Club Crochet member, I have tutorial videos for adding warts and scars and stuff like that. But yeah, so we got the face started there. All right, well, we can continue crocheting now. And we are on round 11. Okay. So for round 11, we want a single crochet 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then we want to do an invisible decrease. Remember the invisible decreases from the arms? You want to take your crochet hook and go into the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. Okay? And then you want to do a single crochet. So it's 8 single crochets and then an invisible decrease. Now you want to do 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then another invisible decrease. One of those front loops. Okay, then another 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then an invisible decrease. It's going to be the last invisible decrease. So you want 3 invisible decreases on the front. Okay. Now we can finish up this round by doing 10 single crochets to the end of the round here. And by the end of this round, you should have 27 stitches around. right, 7, 9. This is going to be our last stitch right here, 10. So you can see how it's going to be kind of starting to pull in on the front right there? Yeah, this guy's looking pretty good actually. I like him. All right, oops. So you should have 27 stitches around now. For round 12, we're going to decrease yet again. We're going to do 7 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now we're going to do our invisible decrease. Okay, 7 single crochets, an invisible decrease. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Then another invisible decrease. Okay. Then 2 more single crochets. 1, 2, and then an invisible decrease. Okay. That's going to be the end of the invisible decreases for this round. Now we're going to finish this round up by doing 10 more single crochets. And this round, at the end of this round, you should have 24 stitches around. And we'll kind of see how it's starting to pull in on the, like, where the chin is, or, you know, the lack of a chin, I suppose. And he's starting to, like, we're just starting to kind of shape the face a little bit more. So that's going to be the end of that round right there. So you see how it's kind of like starting to pull in there on the front and stay straight in the back? Yeah. All right. Okay, so for the next 4 rounds, that's 13, 14, 15, and 16, 4 rounds total, we want to just do single crochets into each stitch around. And there should be 24 stitches per round. So do 4 rounds of 24 stitches, and I'll be back once I finish these 4 rounds. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 16. Okay, so you can see we got our 4 rounds of single crochets. You guys really coming together now. All right, so we're going to do one more round before we sew on our arms. And this is our first round of actual, like, full-on decreasing. So for round 17, we're going to do 2 single crochets. 1, and then 2. And then we're going to do an invisible decrease. And you want to repeat that process of 2 single crochets and then an invisible decrease 6 times total. Okay, so it's 1, 2. This is our second repeat. Okay, and this is going to bring you down from 24 stitches to 18 stitches around. So we're starting to decrease back down so that we can start sewing them together. 1, 2. Okay. And soon is going to come the worst part, which is sewing the arms on. I hate sewing pieces on. But it's necessity, especially for bigger characters like this. All right, so that's going to be the end of round 17 there. Now I'm going to I took the yarn, spread it out a little bit. Now we want to start sewing on the arms. So let me show you how to do that. Now, a cool technique that you can use here is if you use a pipe cleaner. This is a pipe cleaner that's already cut in half. So you want to take a pipe cleaner, fold it in half, and then cut it in half, and then fold it in half again, and cut that in half. This is not a necessity, but, you know, it's kind of a cool way you can add opposable arms, you know, so you can make them however you, in any shape you want. And then take that I guess we're at like a quarter of a pipe cleaner now. And want to fold that pipe cleaner in half one more time. And now you want to twist the ends. Okay, you don't want to twist it too far. You want to still have some of this these ends left over. So like that much left over of each of the ends. Now we're going to choose where we want our arms. So let's take our arm first and place it on the side. I like having my arms facing downwards like this, but you can also have them like that, out, so that he can be holding something. Kind of like an outward down kind of look, right? Let's say like right there, okay? Really on the sides. So we're going to take our pipe cleaner and place it right where we thought we wanted the arm. Oopsies. See, I moved it and now I lost what stitches I was using. Let's see here. Yeah, right there. These guys. Okay, so this is going to be where the center of that arm is going to be. I'll take that pipe cleaner, place it right in between there. And then on the inside, it's going to be hard to see. You see the two ends. It's kind of hard to get. See those two ends are sticking out? And then you want to take these two ends and just twist them together so that pipe cleaner doesn't come apart. And then fold those two ends out. Okay, so now we have a pipe cleaner just sticking out. He's got his kind of his skeleton there. Now we want to take the arm, and there's going to be two pieces here. There's going to be the inside end from the beginning of the piece, and then this outside end. We want to take this inside end and thread it on the needle, and thread it where you put this pipe cleaner. So in either of those two stitches. Okay, and you want to put this around it. Pull it through. Make sure it's on the outside of that pipe cleaner. And now we just simply want to sew it together and go around the piece. So we're going to thread this other end. Okay. And the best way to do this is to hold the arm in place in the position that you want it to be in. You can also pin it if you'd like. And I just simply start going around that pipe cleaner into each stitch. Okay. And that's kind of like making it go out. Let's start it from a different spot. See, here's what I'm. Okay, so I have sewn on both of our arms. I'm very happy with how I've sewn these on. Sometimes that doesn't work really as well as I thought it was going to. But that's why it's really nice to have those pipe cleaners on, because then you can like shape them in any way. So even if you kind of screwed up a little bit, it's not too bad. Something that I forgot to mention is that sometimes I like to add magnets into the arms, which lets me like magnetize weapons so that like he can have different weapons sewn onto the, instead of sewing them onto the hands, we could have like magnets in the weapons. So I don't know, just a little option. All right, well, let's continue on the body. I like sewing closing the body in before I sew on the feet. So I am going to finish crocheting the body first before we get to the feet. All right, so we are on round 18. For round 18, we're going to single crochet 1 to the first stitch, and then we're going to invisible decrease in the next stitch. Okay. Oops. 1, 2. And you want to repeat that 6 times total. So let's do it again. This is our second repeat. Single crochet, then an invisible decrease. This is going to bring you down from 18 stitches to 12 stitches around. Single crochet, then an invisible decrease. Okay. So you can very much see how we are kind of at close to the end of our cave troll here. There's still a lot more we're going to do to him, but like the main base of the pattern is nearly finished. All right, so that's going to be 12 stitches around. Now before I continue, I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to stuff it almost as much as we like it to be stuffed. So just a pretty good amount here. It's easiest to stuff it now than it is to stuff it after this part. So we're going to stuff it. And while you're stuffing it, you don't want to stuff it too much. You want to have like a little bit of a give to your piece. I feel like I'm trying to stuff too much yarn or too much stuffing at one time right now, so it's kind of being a little difficult. Yeah, let's just rip that in half. Oh, that's so much easier. Should have done that originally. Note taken. Don't just try to stuff it too much with too much stuffing at once. Okay. All right. See how we're looking here. Let's just finish this stuffing up. We're going to stuff him a little bit more after the next round, by the way, so don't worry, you don't need to stuff him all the way right at this moment. All right. That's pretty good. You don't want to overstuff him either. That's pretty good. You've got a good denseness to him. Sorry, I didn't mean to flick you. All right, so let's finish up with our final round. For round 19, we're going to just be decreasing in each stitch around. Now, when I say decreasing, I don't mean invisible decreasing. I mean a sharp decrease. This is how I do it. You're going to go into the next stitch and pull a loop through. Then into the next stitch, pull a secondary loop through, and pull that second loop through the two on the hook. Okay? And we're going to do that 6 times, okay, in each stitch around. So that's 1, 2. This is going to bring you down from 12 stitches to 6 stitches. 3, and you can see as we're getting smaller, I have to pinch it instead of getting my finger in the inside there. And just a couple more. All right, and here's our last one. There we go. I messed up that stitch right there, but don't worry about it. That's just going to be sewn shut anyhow. So now we can cut the yarn. You want enough for sewing it together. Pull it through. Now we can stuff it just a little bit more, just so that he has a full body's worth of stuffing. I'm just going to use this to do it. Usually I like using a pencil here, but I actually don't have a pencil around me. I forgot a pencil. So I'm using this little tiny stick instead. Sometimes I have to use the back of my crochet hook, and gosh, that can be so difficult. Or your finger. Gosh, I couldn't even do. Oh, I broke my stuffing stick. Okay. Well, we're just going to use this little bitty end and have it be even more difficult. Again, I did the too much stuffing thing. I'm too strong for my own good. Jeez. There we go. Bet you didn't know I was a superhero. Super strength. Oh, all right, let's finish it up. Let's stuff this. Oh, look at this. I can actually stuff it with my finger. We got enough room, which is shocking. All right, so I think that's pretty good for the stuffing. Well, screw it. One more little bit. Why not? Just, it feels a little bit empty here at the bottom. Okay. I'm squishing him around so that the stuffing like fits every crevice. Now I'm going to take my needle and just sew him shut. All right, so for sewing shut, if you don't know how, I'm going to count a few stitches over. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to go across. Then I'm going to go into the next one right here. Across. And pull that first one tight. That second one tight. Go to the next stitch. across, and then finally go into the last stitch right here. I have a whole video on this, by the way, if you don't know how to sew things closed, where I go into a lot more detail. Okay, so I just came out somewhere on the back, then I'm going to go back into that same stitch and come out through the bottom. Okay, and we can cut it really close. It's not going to come undone. All right, so now we have the main body of our ogre made. Now we need to sew on our little feet. Okay, so I have a special way to sew on feet after the piece is already sewn together. And here is how we do it. First off, we want the feet to be slightly in front like this, okay? Not really right under it, because he won't be able to stand up. So we want it slightly in the front. Okay, so you want his because you want the body mass to be like in front like that. The reason is so that he can stand up on his own. Like, oh, not like that, like this. See? So if he's a little bit leaning forward, he'll be able to stand up like that. All right, so how we're going to do that is we're going to thread the inside, okay? First, remember the same thing with the arm. There's two ends here. There's an inside one and an outside one. Get the foot exactly where we think we want it, which I believe is right like that. You want them a little bit bow-legged or cow-hocked or whatever it is, so that both legs are kind of facing outwards. Go in and just kind of come out somewhere on the back. Just some stitch, doesn't really matter. And now let's start sewing this foot on. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing we did the arms. Just hold the foot into its place, exactly where you want it. Let's go right like that. Oops, like that. And we'll just start sewing it together. This is where having one of these curved needles is very, very, very useful. Makes your life a lot easier. Oopsies. Around the arm there. And I'm just going the same thing we did with the body. We're going down through a stitch, out through the next one. Make sure we're holding it in the right spot. Oops. Okay, that's looking kind of good. I like it. Don't forget we're going to have to stuff it closed before the end. Don't crochet it or don't sew it all the way on before you stuff it. Just like the arms, same exact thing. Don't want to stuff it, or you don't want to not stuff it, especially on the feet though, because the feet are they need to be stuffed so that he can stand up. And I'll show you, I have a trick for getting him to stand up if he doesn't really want to on his own. All right. Now is where I want to count my stitches. Let's see what we got here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, let's say 5. Wait, say 1, 2. That's good. Okay. I'm just plotting where I want my pieces, where I want my each stitch to be sewn on, by counting the stitches we have left and counting the stitches over. Now we have 4 stitches left, so I'm going to stuff the foot with our broken stuffing stick. Get it at your local Walmart. It's a Walmart and Target put together. All right, there we go. Yeah, it's pretty good. Let's keep sewing it closed. Boop, boop. The foot is, I think, the trickiest part to sew on because you never know. I'm never sure where I want it to be. But that looks pretty good. Also, you can sew the foot. I forgot to mention this. You can sew the foot onto the front of him instead of onto the bottom like this, so that he's like sitting down. So let me show you an example of that in just a second. Here's our last stitch. And now for the last stitch, you want to go through and come out on exactly where you came out the first time, like right here. Okay, pull it tight. Now you can double knot these two ends. One. You want to pull it a little bit tight. Two. Cut the end pretty close. And then you want to stuff that back in with the end of your needle. Okay. There we go. There we go. So we got one of the feet sewn on. He's a paraplegic right now. Now, what I was saying was you can sew on the feet onto the front like that, so he's more of like a sitting down character. I like, obviously, making my ogres standing up and my hobgoblins sitting down. But you can do whatever you'd like. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sew on the other foot, and I'll be back in just a second. We'll make our loincloth and finish this character up. Okay, so I finished the feet, and as you can see, I can get him to stand. It can be a little bit tough for him to stand. I need to kind of balance him right. But here is my quick trick for getting your character to stand upright. I take a needle, I put it up his bum, and there you go. He's got a little kickstand. There you go. That's how I get them to stand up on their own if they don't want to do that. Okay, so the last thing I want to add to this poor naked boy is that we need to add... Sorry, I'm looking for my yarn. Oh, there it is. We need to add a loincloth. So we're going to be using our brown yarn for this. Okay, so we want to use our brown yarn here. And we want a somewhat long end, so let's go with like that long there. We're going to make a slip knot. And chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to skip our first chain right there and start single crocheting into the second chain from the hook. We're going to do a single crochet into each of these 3 remaining chains. So it's 1, 2, and 3. Now this has worked in the flat, so we're going to, for row 2, we're going to chain 1 and turn it. Now we're going to work into the back loops only, meaning the loops furthest away from us, so right here. And we want to single crochet into the next 2 stitches. We're going to stop 1 stitch early. So we're just going to single crochet 1, or skip the chain, of course, and 2, and we're working only in those back loops. Okay. For row 3, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to turn. We're going to skip our first chain and single crochet into our next 2 chains. 1, 2, and again we're working in that back loop only. We're going to finish by single crocheting 2 into those back loops only. 1 and 2. Okay, you can see how our loincloth's coming together there. Now we want to, for row 4, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to work only in the back loops, and we're going to single crochet 4, meaning 1 single crochet per stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and here's our last one right here, 4. Okay. For row 5, we're going to not chain, and turn. So we're not chaining at all. We're going to skip our first stitch right there. And again, we're working in these back loops only. We're just going to skip that first stitch and single crochet into the next 3. So that's 1, 2, and 3. This is going to be the main part of the loincloth, so you can see how it looks right there. Okay. To finish this up, we're going to chain 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And we're going to cut with a pretty long end here and just pull it all the way through. Okay, now let's sew this onto our guy's body. We're going to start by threading this this tail end here. And we want to take our guy and we're going to sew it onto just above the leg, so like right here. Okay? And we're going to come out through the back like right there. Okay? So like right on the back right there, lower back. Now we're going to thread our other side and take this end and we're going to go all the way around the body. Okay? And go into the same stitch that we went into there, but through the end of this loincloth. So we want to go through this end right here and then into that same stitch. And we want to come out a stitch under where we came out with that other side. And we want the chain here to be on the opposite, in between the two. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that it gets all the way pulled through. Okay, so that's pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay. And now, to finish this up, we want to just double knot these two ends around this chain. One. And you don't need to double knot it too tight. 2. And we'll cut the ends. And something that I like to do is I like to take my needle and I like to split the ends of this yarn so it looks more like tattered. By just going through that yarn like that, see? Makes it a little bit more tattered. And there we go, and now we got a little loincloth on him. Get him to stand up on his own. Come on, buddy, you can stand. There we go. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be doing another video now for how to crochet the club. So it's going to be a separate video. There should be a link in the description below for how to crochet that club, but I wanted to do it separately so that you could add that club to a bunch of different characters that if you wanted, so I could link that video to other stuff. So if you want to learn how to crochet the club, check out the link in the description below. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. You can get the full Goblinoid pattern bundle at clubcrochet.com/goblinoid. And if you use the code GERBLIN, GERBLIN at checkout, you'll get the price of this pattern off of the purchase of the full bundle. And if you're a Club Crochet member, you get this full bundle just with the Club Crochet membership. And memberships start at only $5 a month. You can learn more at clubcrochet.com. Thanks so much for watching. Pasta la pizza. And happy hooking. Bye.